My husband walked into my hotel lobby with another woman on his arm, laughing like he owned the place. He had no idea that I actually did. See, while he thought I was just sitting at home being the perfect wife, I was building an empire he knew nothing about. Before I tell you how I watched my cheating husband's face go from confident to terrified in 3 seconds flat, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Trust me, you're going to want to hear every single detail of what happened next. Now let me take you back to where this all started. My name is Diane, and for 12 years, I thought I was living the dream. I met Trevor when I was 26 at some fancy charity gala in Atlanta. He was 30, already making waves in commercial real estate, and when he walked up to me in that custom suit with that $1,000,000 smile, I swear the whole room faded away. He was confident, ambitious, and he made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. We got married 8 months later in a ceremony that cost more than most people's houses. The early years were good, really good. We traveled, we laughed, we built a life together. I had just finished my MBA and had dreams of starting my own investment firm, but Trevor's career was exploding. He needed someone to handle the social side of business, to host dinners, to be the perfect wife at every fundraiser and corporate event. So I put my dreams in a drawer and became exactly what he needed. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd get back to my goals eventually, but eventually kept getting pushed further and further away. Around year 9, things started changing. Trevor's late nights at the office became the norm instead of the exception. Those business trips that used to be once a month turned into twice a week. I'd call him at the hotel where he said he was staying, and the front desk would tell me they had no guest by that name. When I'd ask him about it, he'd get defensive, say I was being paranoid, that I didn't understand the pressure he was under. He started going to the gym obsessively, buying new clothes, wearing cologne I'd never smelled before. His phone became an extension of his hand, always face down on every surface, password protected like it held nuclear codes. My girlfriends would give me these looks over brunch, these pitying glances that said they knew something I didn't want to admit. One of them even pulled me aside once and said, "Diane, honey, when are you going to wake up?" But I didn't want to wake up. I wanted to believe that the man I married, the man I'd sacrificed my own dreams for, wouldn't do that to me. I wanted to believe I was different, that our love was special, that we were going to make it when so many others didn't. But loneliness has a way of creeping into your bones. I'd lie awake at night in our king-sized bed, Trevor's side cold and empty, and I'd wonder when I became so invisible. When did I stop being a wife and start being just a fixture in his life? Someone to keep the house running and look good at events, but not someone he actually wanted to come home to anymore? 2 years ago, my grandmother passed away. She was 93 and sharp as a tack until the very end. That woman had lived through Jim Crow, raised 5 kids on her own after my grandfather died young, and still managed to save enough money to buy 3 properties in what eventually became a prime area of downtown Atlanta. When the lawyer read her will, I inherited everything, $500,000 and those 3 properties that were now worth almost $2 million. I didn't tell Trevor. I don't know why exactly, but something in my gut told me to keep it to myself. Maybe it was the way he'd been acting, or maybe it was some deeper instinct that knew I needed something that was just mine. I put the money in an account under my maiden name and started educating myself on real estate investment. I'd spend hours at coffee shops with my laptop, learning about property management, commercial real estate, market trends. Trevor thought I'd joined a book club and was doing charity work. In a way, I had joined a club, just not the kind he imagined. I started small. I renovated my grandmother's properties and turned them into upscale rental units. The income was good, really good. I reinvested everything, buying more properties, building a portfolio. I used my maiden name for all of it, Diane Monroe. I'd change clothes in my car, switching from my casual wife outfit to my power suits before business meetings. I became 2 different people living in one skin. 6 months ago, I made the biggest move of my life. A boutique luxury hotel downtown was going under, mismanaged and bleeding money despite its prime location. I saw potential where everyone else saw a sinking ship. I liquidated some assets, secured a loan, and bought it. The Monroe, I called it, after my grandmother, who'd made it all possible. I poured everything into that hotel, every lesson I'd learned, every business instinct I'd developed. I hired the best general manager I could find, a man named Carlos who'd worked at five-star hotels across the country. Together, we transformed that place into something special. The renovation took 4 months. 4 months of me leaving the house at 8 in the morning and sometimes not coming back until 10 at night. Trevor barely noticed. He was too busy with his own life, his own secrets. When he did ask where I'd been, I'd tell him about the charity board I'd joined or the volunteer work I was doing. He'd nod, barely listening, already looking back at his phone. It was almost funny how easy it was to hide an entire second life from someone who'd stopped really seeing you years ago. The Monroe opened to incredible reviews. We became the hottest hotel in Atlanta within weeks. Celebrities stayed with us. Corporations booked our conference rooms. Society weddings were held in our ballroom. And through it all, Trevor had no idea that his wife, the woman he thought was home arranging flowers and planning dinner parties, was the owner of one of the most successful boutique hotels in the city. Then came the evening that changed everything. I was going through Trevor's car looking for a phone charger when I found it, a lipstick tucked into the side pocket of the driver's door. Not my shade, not even close. I stood there in our garage, holding this tube of cheap drugstore lipstick, and something inside me just snapped. All those nights of lying to myself, of making excuses, of trying to be understanding, they all crashed down at once. I hired a private investigator. Cost me $3,000, but it was worth every penny. 2 weeks later, he handed me a file that laid out my husband's entire double life in glossy 8x10 photographs. Her name was Brooklyn. 28 years old, Instagram influencer with 40,000 followers, posted pictures of her brunch and her outfits and inspirational quotes about living your best life. They'd been together for 18 months. 18 months of dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, weekend trips to places he'd told me were business conferences, hotel rooms, and champagne, and lies upon lies upon lies. The photos showed everything. Trevor's hand on her lower back, Trevor kissing her neck outside a club, Trevor buying her a bracelet at a jewelry store downtown. And in every single photo, he looked happy. Happier than I'd seen him look at me in years. That hurt worse than the cheating itself. The fact that he'd found joy with someone else while slowly killing everything we'd built together. I sat in my car in a parking garage going through that file, and I cried until I couldn't cry anymore. Then I got angry. No, angry isn't the right word. I got focused. I called my lawyer, a sharp woman named Miss Patterson who'd helped me set up my business entities. I showed her everything. She looked at me over her reading glasses and said, "Honey, you've got him. Now let's make sure you protect what's yours." We went through everything. Trevor had been using our joint credit cards for his affair. Dinners, hotels, gifts, all of it traceable. Meanwhile, all my business income and assets were completely separate, in accounts and LLCs he didn't even know existed. Miss Patterson advised me to wait, to gather more evidence, to prepare for the inevitable. So I did. I went home that night and kissed my husband on the cheek when he came in at midnight smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. I smiled and asked about his day. I played the role I'd been playing for years, but this time, I was doing it with purpose. For 2 months, I waited. I secured all my assets, made sure every dollar I'd earned was protected, documented every suspicious charge on our joint accounts. I was building a case, brick by brick, and Trevor had no idea the walls were closing in. I thought about confronting him 100 times. I rehearsed speeches in the shower, imagined throwing his clothes on the lawn, pictured the look on his face when I told him I knew everything, but something held me back. I wanted more than just a confrontation. I wanted him to feel what I'd felt. The shock, the humiliation, the sudden realization that the life you thought you had was built on sand. Then, on a Friday afternoon, fate handed me the opportunity I'd been waiting for. I was in my office at the Monroe, going over the weekend reservations with Carlos, when he stopped mid-sentence and looked at me with concern. "Mrs. Monroe," he said carefully, "we just received a reservation that I think you should know about." My heart started pounding before he even said the name. It's for Trevor Richardson. He's booked the penthouse suite for tonight, requested ultimate privacy and VIP treatment. The room seemed to tilt. Trevor, my Trevor, making a reservation at my hotel, under his company name, probably expensing it, planning to bring her here, to my place, to the empire I'd built while he was busy destroying our marriage. The audacity of it was almost breathtaking. Carlos was watching me, waiting for instructions. He'd been with me long enough to know I wasn't just another hotel owner. He'd seen me fight for every detail, pour my heart into every decision. He was loyal, and in that moment, I needed that loyalty. "Accept the reservation," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Give him exactly what he asked for. And Carlos, make sure you notify me the moment he arrives." The rest of the afternoon crawled by. I tried to work, tried to focus on emails and budgets and staffing schedules, but my mind kept circling back to what was about to happen. I thought about calling Miss Patterson, but I knew what she'd say. This was it. This was the moment where everything would come to light. Part of me wanted to run, to pretend I'd never seen that reservation, to go home and keep living in the comfortable lie. But a bigger part of me, the part that had been growing stronger over the past 2 years, knew it was time. At 7 o'clock, my phone buzzed. "Carlos." "He's here." I pulled up the security camera feed on my computer. There he was, my husband, pulling up to my hotel in the Mercedes I'd helped him pick out 3 years ago. He stepped out wearing a charcoal suit I'd never seen before, and then he walked around to open the passenger door. Out stepped Brooklyn in a tight red dress and heels that probably cost more than most people's rent. She was pretty, I'd give her that, young and carefree in a way I hadn't been in years. Trevor's hand went immediately to her waist, pulling her close, and even through the grainy camera feed, I could see him kiss her neck as they walked toward the entrance. I watched them cross my lobby like they owned it, laughing at some private joke, completely oblivious to the fact that every step they took was on my property, under my cameras, being documented by my staff. Lauren at the front desk checked them in with professional courtesy, and I watched Trevor sign the registration card with a flourish, probably thinking about the night ahead, about champagne and silk sheets and no wife to answer to. They disappeared into the elevator, and I sat back in my chair breathing hard. This was real. This was happening. After months of knowing, weeks of planning, it was all coming down to this moment. I gave them 10 minutes. 10 minutes to get comfortable, to open the champagne I knew Carlos would have waiting, to start believing they'd gotten away with it. Then I stood up, smoothed down my burgundy suit, the one that cost $2,000 and made me look like I could run a Fortune 500 company, and checked my reflection. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, heels that clicked with authority. I looked like power, and I felt like fire. The elevator ride to the penthouse floor felt like it took hours. My hands were shaking, but I kept my breathing steady. I'd built this hotel. I'd created this empire. I'd survived 12 years of marriage to a man who'd forgotten how to love me. I could do this. I knocked on the penthouse door, 3 sharp raps that echoed in the hallway. There was a pause, some shuffling, and then the door opened. Brooklyn stood there in one of our plush hotel robes, a champagne flute in her hand, looking annoyed at the interruption. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone suggesting that I absolutely could not. I smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. "I'm looking for my husband." I watched the color drain from her face as the words registered. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Behind her, I could see Trevor appear, barefoot and frozen in hotel slippers, his shirt unbuttoned. Our eyes met across the room, and I watched 12 years of lies crumble in his expression. "Diane?" His voice cracked on my name. What are you doing here?" I walked past Brooklyn into the penthouse suite like I owned it, because I did. Every piece of furniture, every champagne flute, every thread in the Egyptian cotton sheets they'd been planning to tangle themselves in. All mine. "I could ask you the same thing, Trevor," I said, my voice calm and cold. "But I already know the answer." Brooklyn had recovered enough to find her voice. "Who is this woman?" I turned to her, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I'm his wife of 12 years, and I'm also the owner of this hotel. The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't detonated yet. Trevor's face went from red to white to gray. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Brooklyn looked between us, her champagne glass trembling in her hand. "Every charge you made tonight?" I continued, walking slowly around the room, touching the champagne bucket, the roses Trevor had probably ordered, the view of Atlanta my windows provided. "Comes to me. Every text you thought was private, my staff has seen. Every moment you thought you were getting away with something. I've been watching." Trevor finally found his voice. "Diane, this isn't— I can explain." "Explain what?" I cut him off. "Explain the 18 months? The hotels, the restaurants, the jewelry you bought her with our money? Or maybe you want to explain how you made a reservation at my hotel, Trevor. My hotel. The one I built while you were too busy cheating to notice that your wife had become more successful than you ever imagined." The truth was settling over him like a weight. I could see him doing the math, putting together all the pieces he'd missed. The late nights I'd blamed on charity work, the new confidence he'd probably attributed to a gym membership, the fact that I'd stopped asking where he was because I'd been too busy building something real. I turned to Brooklyn, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the expensive carpet. "You can stay the night, honey. It's already paid for. But he's leaving. Now." I picked up the house phone and called security. Within minutes, 2 of my best guys were at the door. Trevor tried to protest, tried to grab my arm, tried to do something to maintain control of a situation where he had none. "Don't touch me," I said quietly, and something in my voice made him step back. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer on Monday. Until then, stay away from me and stay out of my hotel." I watched security escort him to the elevator, still in those ridiculous hotel slippers, his shirt half-buttoned, his mistress watching from the penthouse doorway with mascara starting to run down her cheeks. The great Trevor Richardson, real estate mogul, reduced to a humiliated man being thrown out of a hotel owned by the wife he'd underestimated. I went back to my office and sat down in my chair. Carlos appeared with a cup of tea, setting it down gently without a word. Through my window, I watched Trevor's Mercedes peel out of the parking lot 20 minutes later. An hour after that, I saw Brooklyn leave in an Uber, her designer bag clutched to her chest, the confident woman from the red dress replaced by someone who'd just realized she was part of someone else's devastation. That was 8 months ago. Trevor tried to fight the divorce at first, hired an expensive lawyer who made a lot of noise about marital assets and contributions to my business. But once Miss Patterson laid out the evidence of his affair, the documented expenses on our joint accounts, the timeline of my inheritance, and how I'd kept my business completely separate, his lawyer advised him to settle. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago. He kept his real estate business and whatever was left in our joint accounts after he'd spent so much of it on Brooklyn. I kept everything I'd built, every property, every investment, every dollar I'd earned. Brooklyn deleted all the photos of them from her Instagram. Last I heard, she's dating some other wealthy guy, still posting her brunch pictures and inspirational quotes. Trevor tried to reach out a few times, sent flowers, left voicemails talking about mistakes and counseling and second chances. I never responded. You don't get to betray someone for 18 months and then ask for understanding. The Monroe is thriving. We're booked solid 3 months in advance, and I just closed on my second property, a historic hotel in Savannah that I'm going to restore to its former glory. My grandmother would be proud. I like to think she's somewhere smiling, knowing that the money she worked so hard to save didn't just give me security, it gave me freedom. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I wish I'd confronted Trevor differently or tried to save the marriage. The answer is no. That night at the Monroe wasn't just about catching my husband cheating. It was about reclaiming myself. It was about showing him, showing Brooklyn, showing myself that I was never just the perfect wife standing in someone else's shadow. I was always more than that. I just needed to remember it. So here's what I want you to take from my story. Never put your dreams on hold for someone who's not putting you first. Build your own table, secure your own bag, and never let anyone make you feel small. While Trevor was busy thinking I was home arranging flowers, I was building an empire he couldn't touch. While he was sneaking around with someone else, I was investing in myself. And when the moment of truth came, I didn't just catch him. I beat him at a game he didn't even know we were playing. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button, drop a comment telling me what you would have done, and subscribe for more real-life stories about women who refuse to be played. Remember, the best revenge isn't getting mad, it's getting everything. I'll see you in the next one.